The morning sun painted Atlanta's skyline in hues of gold and pink as Maya Richardson carefully placed the last lavender honey macaron in her signature pink pastry boxes. Each box held a carefully curated selection of her most requested creations: delicate croissants filled with hand-churned butter, chocolate eclairs topped with edible gold leaf, and her award-winning Southern peach danishes that had food critics raving across 3 states. At 32, Maya had already accomplished more than most chefs twice her age. Her hands moved swiftly, muscle memory from years of early mornings and late nights in professional kitchens guiding her movements. The morning show appearance wasn't just another television spot, it was her chance to announce the opening of her second restaurant, a dream she carried since her first successful food truck venture 5 years ago. The kitchen of her flagship restaurant, Sweet Magnolia, hummed with early morning preparation as her trusted sous chef, Thomas, helped load the precious cargo into her silver SUV. "You've got this, chef," he said with a knowing smile, having witnessed her journey from their culinary school days. Maya checked her appearance in the rearview mirror, her neat cornrows crowned with a stylish head wrap that matched her chef's coat, a subtle touch of mascara highlighting her determined brown eyes. The GPS chirped as Maya navigated downtown Atlanta's awakening streets. The morning show studio was only 15 minutes away, but she left an hour early, knowing that perfection required preparation. The pastry boxes released tendrils of sweetness into the car's interior, reminding her of countless mornings in her grandmother's kitchen, learning the secrets of perfectly flaky biscuits and tender cake layers. Her phone buzzed with a message from the show's producer. Celebrity guest judge confirmed. Hurry. Maya's heart skipped a beat. This could be the exposure her new restaurant needed to become an instant success. She glanced at the clock, 6:45 a.m. Still plenty of time, but the traffic was beginning to thicken like poorly tempered chocolate. The GPS suddenly rerouted, suggesting a shortcut through a residential area to avoid an accident ahead. Maya followed the new direction, her mind racing with the possibilities ahead. The tree-lined street was quiet, houses still drowsy with sleep. Lost in thoughts of her presentation, she would demonstrate her signature fusion dish of French technique meeting Southern comfort. Maya barely registered the stop sign until she was already rolling through it. Blue lights flashed in her rearview mirror, and her heart sank like a fallen souffle. Officer Sarah Martinez approached Maya's window, noting the heavenly smell wafting from the vehicle. Maya explained her situation: the TV show, the special announcement, the crucial timing. The officer's stern expression softened slightly at the sight of the beautifully packaged pastries, but duty called. "I understand you're in a hurry, Ms. Richardson, but safety comes first," Officer Martinez said, running Maya's license. Her expression changed as she returned. There seemed to be some unpaid parking tickets here. Maya's stomach tightened. Those hectic days of running between food truck locations, catering events, and supplier meetings had left their mark. As Officer Martinez wrote the citation requiring a court appearance, Maya's phone lit up with another message from the producer. "Where are you?" "Celebrity chef waiting." She looked at the time. 7:05 a.m. The morning sun no longer felt quite so golden, and the sweet scent of success in her car now carried a hint of irony. This was not how she had planned to start this pivotal day, but Maya Richardson hadn't built her culinary empire by letting setbacks stop her. She accepted the ticket with grace, knowing that every successful recipe required adjusting to unexpected ingredients. 2 weeks after the morning show incident, Maya stood in the marble-floored courthouse, her floral dress catching the sunlight streaming through tall windows. The TV appearance had been a stunning success despite her delay. Her pastries had charmed the celebrity chef so much that he'd requested her to cater his upcoming cookbook launch. Now she faced a different kind of audience in this grand hall of justice. The scent of cocoa still clung to her skin from her morning's work. She'd been perfecting a new dessert, a dark chocolate souffle with hints of orange blossom and local honey, when her phone's calendar reminder had chimed. The experimental dessert had turned out beautifully, and she barely had time to change before rushing to the courthouse, though she remembered to trade her chef's clogs for elegant ballet flats. Maya observed the bustling courtroom while waiting for her case to be called. Lawyers in crisp suits hurried past, their briefcases swinging in rhythm with their steps. A young mother soothed her crying baby, while an elderly gentleman dozed in the back row. The wooden benches were uncomfortable, but Maya maintained perfect posture, a habit ingrained from years of standing in professional kitchens. Docket number 247, Richardson, called the court clerk, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. Maya rose gracefully, clutching her small leather purse that contained the carefully organized receipts from her food truck days. As she walked forward, she noticed Judge William Barrett adjusting his reading glasses, his eyes lingering on the light dusting of cocoa powder that still adorned the sleeve of her dress. The judge's chamber smelled of old books and coffee, a stark contrast to the vanilla and spice-scented world she typically inhabited. His desk was a monument to order, with neat stacks of papers and perfectly aligned pens. Maya recognized a kindred spirit in this attention to detail, even if their worlds were vastly different. "Ms. Richardson," Judge Barrett began, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "I see you have accumulated several parking violations during the past year." He peered at her over his glasses, noting her unusual attire for a court appearance. The floral dress, while beautiful, wasn't typical courtroom attire, and a smudge of what appeared to be chocolate marked her wrist. Maya stood straight, her voice clear and professional, as she began to explain about her food truck business, the challenge of finding legal parking spots during peak hours, and how her success had actually grown from these humble beginnings. But Judge Barrett raised his hand, cutting her explanation short. The courtroom fell silent as he reviewed her file again. Maya noticed a magazine peeking out from beneath the stack of papers on his desk, a food publication she'd recently been featured in, though the judge seemed oblivious to this ironic detail. Her fingers instinctively traced the outline of her phone in her purse, where emails about tonight's cooking class waited for her attention. "The law," Judge Barrett pronounced, adjusting his robes, "applies equally to all citizens, regardless of their circumstances." His tone carried a hint of assumption about her ability to pay the fines, unaware that her restaurants now grossed 7 figures annually. Maya maintained her composure, the same steady patience she'd learned while waiting for souffles to rise perfectly. Around them, the courthouse continued its daily dance of justice. But in this moment, two worlds collided, the precise, measured world of law and the creative, passionate world of culinary arts. Neither person fully understood the other's universe, but their paths were now inexorably linked, like ingredients coming together in an unexpected but significant way. Judge Barrett shuffled through Maya's file with deliberate slowness, the whisper of paper against paper filling the tense courtroom air. His reading glasses reflected the morning light as he studied each parking citation with meticulous attention. Maya stood perfectly still, her years of kitchen discipline serving her well in this moment. Her phone silently vibrated in her purse, likely her restaurant manager confirming the arrival of rare truffles from Italy for tonight's special tasting menu. "Ms. Richardson," Judge Barrett began, his tone carrying the weight of 20 years on the bench, "I see a pattern of disregard for city ordinances spanning several months." He paused, looking up at her over his glasses. "Would you care to explain why these citations remained unpaid?" Maya took a measured breath, the same way she did before plating a complex dish. "Your Honor, during that time, I was operating a mobile business that required—" "A food truck, yes?" He interrupted, his tone suggesting he'd heard similar stories before. "Selling street food doesn't excuse you from following city regulations, Ms. Richardson." The corners of Maya's mouth tightened slightly, the only visible sign of her reaction to his dismissive tone. That street food had earned her features in national magazines and helped fund her culinary education in Paris. The same recipes now commanded $100 plates at Sweet Magnolia. A young law clerk entered silently, placing a stack of new files on the judge's desk. Maya noticed the top magazine sliding further into view, Culinary Excellence, with its glossy cover peeking out. The irony wasn't lost on her, but now wasn't the time to mention her cover story in last month's issue. "Your Honor," Maya began again, her voice steady and clear. I understand the importance of these regulations. During my food truck days, finding legal parking while serving customers was challenging. However, I've since. Ms. Richardson, Judge Barrett interjected again, removing his glasses and fixing her with a stern gaze. The court is not interested in excuses about customer service. The law exists to maintain order, not to accommodate business convenience. The courtroom's air conditioning hummed softly, a familiar sound to Maya, who was used to the constant whir of kitchen ventilation. In 3 hours, she would be teaching aspiring chefs the art of French pastry at Le Cordon Bleu's Atlanta campus. The paper with her guest lecturer notes sat folded in her purse, right next to the citations. Furthermore, the judge continued, shuffling more papers, your casual appearance in this courtroom suggests a certain lack of respect for these proceedings. His eyes lingered on her floral dress, unaware it was a channel piece she'd worn for her upcoming magazine interview. Maya's fingers brushed against the light dusting of cocoa powder on her sleeve, evidence of the morning's recipe testing for a prestigious catering event. She remained silent, knowing that sometimes, like a perfect souffle, timing was everything. Judge Barrett lifted his gavel, his decision apparently made. This court hereby fines you $500 for the outstanding citations, plus court fees. I strongly suggest you take these matters more seriously in the future, Ms. Richardson. Your current occupation does not place you above the law. Maya nodded gracefully, accepting the judgment with the same poise she displayed when receiving criticism from Michelin-starred chefs. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed again. A message from her publicist about tomorrow's television appearance to announce her new restaurant's opening. Sometimes, she mused, the best dish comes from ingredients that don't seem to go together at first. This morning's sour experience would make tomorrow's sweet success all the more flavorful. Judge William Barrett arrived home that evening to the inviting aroma of his wife Emma's signature lasagna. He loosened his bow tie, mentally reviewing the day's cases as he hung his robes in the closet. The weight of making countless decisions still rested on his shoulders, including his judgment of that young woman with the unpaid parking tickets. What was her name again? Richardson? William, you won't believe what I managed to do today. Emma's voice rang with excitement as she rushed into the foyer, still wearing her apple-patterned apron. Her eyes sparkled with the kind of enthusiasm she usually reserved for her cooking club achievements. In her hands, she clutched the latest issue of Culinary Excellence magazine. Let me guess, he smiled, following her into their warm kitchen. You finally perfected your grandmother's bread pudding recipe. He settled into his favorite breakfast nook chair, the one with the perfect view of their blooming garden. Emma laughed, shaking her head. Even better, I got us reservations at Sweet Magnolia. She placed the magazine on the table with a flourish. Do you know how impossible these are to get? They're booked solid for months. But Sandra, you remember Sandra from my book club? Her niece works there as a hostess, and there was a last-minute cancellation for this Saturday. The judge reached for his reading glasses, curious about his wife's enthusiasm. Emma had always been passionate about fine dining, but he'd never seen her quite this excited about a restaurant reservation. You have to see this, William, Emma continued, flipping through the glossy pages. The owner chef is absolutely brilliant. She trained in Paris, worked under 3 Michelin-starred chefs, and her fusion of French technique with Southern cuisine is revolutionary. Look, there's her feature story. Judge Barrett adjusted his glasses, focusing on the magazine spread. His hand froze midway through bringing his evening coffee to his lips. There, smiling confidently from a 2-page spread, stood Maya Richardson. She wore immaculate chef's whites, her prestigious James Beard medal gleaming against the crisp fabric. The cocoa-dusted floral dress from his courtroom was nowhere in sight, but her dignified poise was instantly recognizable. Maya Richardson. Redefining Southern cuisine, he read aloud, his coffee forgotten. His eyes scanned the article. Youngest recipient of the James Beard Rising Star Chef Award. Graduated top of her class from Le Cordon Bleu, Paris. Restaurants grossing over $8 million annually. pioneering mentor program for aspiring young chefs. Emma, misreading his stunned expression, continued enthusiastically, and look at these reviews. The Atlanta Journal called her a culinary genius, reshaping the landscape of modern Southern dining. She started with a food truck, if you can believe it, built her entire empire from scratch, and now she's opening a second location next month. It's already the most anticipated restaurant opening of the year. The judge stared at the photos of elaborate dishes, architectural masterpieces of food that looked more like art than meals. His mind flashed back to the morning's court session, his dismissive tone, his assumptions about her street food business. "William, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." Emma touched his arm gently, concerned by his prolonged silence. "I'm fine," he managed, though his collar suddenly felt too tight. I believe I may have made a significant error in judgment today." He closed the magazine slowly, the weight of his morning's misconceptions settling heavily on his conscience like an overcooked souffle. Sweet Magnolia's elegant facade glowed warmly in the Atlanta evening, its hand-painted sign featuring delicate gold magnolia blossoms catching the light of custom crystal sconces. Judge Barrett tugged nervously at his tie as he and Emma approached the entrance. The hostess, dressed in a perfectly pressed black dress with a golden magnolia pin, greeted them with a warm smile. "Judge and Mrs. Barrett, welcome to Sweet Magnolia. Chef Richardson personally selected this table for you." The hostess led them through the main dining room, where every detail spoke of thoughtful refinement. Hand-painted murals of magnolia trees stretched across the walls, their branches seeming to dance in the soft lighting. Crystal chandeliers cast a gentle glow over tables dressed in crisp white linens. Their table offered a perfect view of the showcase kitchen through a vast window of spotless glass. Emma squeezed her husband's hand excitedly as they settled into their seats, while he found himself transfixed by the scene before him. There stood Maya Richardson, a far cry from the woman he'd seen in his courtroom. She moved through her kitchen like a conductor leading an orchestra, her chef's whites pristine, her commands clear and precise. "The truffle risotto needs more finish," Maya's voice carried through the special acoustic design of the kitchen window. "James, watch your timing on the duck confit." "Sir, those sofas need to go in exactly 3 minutes apart." Her staff responded with crisp, "Yes, chef," replies, moving with practiced precision. The sommelier approached their table, presenting a wine list bound in soft leather. Chef Richardson suggested our 2015 Chateau Margaux to complement tonight's tasting menu. He offered with a knowing smile. She mentioned you might appreciate its perfect balance of authority and grace. Judge Barrett's eyebrows rose slightly at the subtle message in the wine choice. Through the kitchen window, he watched Maya plate a dish with surgical precision, using tweezers to place microscopic herbs on what looked like a work of art rather than food. A food critic from the New York Times sat nearby, photographing each course with reverent attention. "Look at her go," Emma whispered, watching Maya taste a sauce, make a minute adjustment, and transform it into something that made a seasoned chef's eyes widen with appreciation. They say she can taste a dish and identify every ingredient, down to the type of salt used. The judge observed as Maya instructed a young apprentice in the art of plating, her movements patient and deliberate. The same hands he watched nervously fidgeting with a purse strap in his courtroom now moved with absolute confidence, creating culinary masterpieces with the precision of a surgeon and the creativity of an artist. A server appeared with their first course, a delicate amuse-bouche presented on a hand-carved magnolia leaf. "Chef's compliments," he announced. "A Southern-inspired goger with aged country ham and bourbon barrel-aged maple cream. Chefs suggest you enjoy it in one bite for the full experience of textures and flavors." As Judge Barrett tasted the perfectly crafted morsel, the flavors unfolding like a well-constructed legal argument, he watched Maya examine every plate before it left her kitchen. Her standards were clearly as exacting as any he'd encountered in law school. He noticed how her staff looked at her with the same respect as law clerks showed him, earned through expertise, leadership, and unwavering excellence. Through the window, Maya caught his eye for a brief moment and gave a slight, dignified nod before turning back to her craft. In that moment, Judge Barrett realized that he sat in judgment once again, not of a defendant, but of his own hasty assumptions. Each course that arrived at Judge Barrett's table told a story, not just of culinary excellence, but of Maya Richardson's remarkable journey. The butter-poached lobster, their server explained, was inspired by her first apprenticeship in Maine, where she worked 18-hour days, learning from a renowned seafood chef, while sleeping on a friend's couch to save money for culinary school. The sauce contains exactly 13 ingredients. The server shared, his pride evident. Chef Richardson perfected it during her time in Paris, where she won a prestigious scholarship after competing against 300 international applicants. The judge watched as Emma closed her eyes in delight at the first taste, the subtle flavors dancing on her palate. Between courses, they observed Maya directing her kitchen with quiet authority. A young line cook nearly dropped a pan of seared scallops, but Maya steadied both the pan and the cook's nerves with a gentle word and demonstration of proper technique. "That's Lisa," their server mentioned while pouring a perfectly paired wine. Chef Richardson sponsored her culinary school education through the restaurant's mentorship program. The next course arrived under silver domes, released in perfect synchronization to reveal Maya's signature dish, duck confit with sweet potato puree and fig gastrique. This dish earned her the James Beard Rising Star Chef Award, the server explained. The preparation takes 3 days, and Chef Richardson still oversees every step personally. Through the kitchen window, they watched Maya taste-testing sauces, adjusting seasonings with microscopic precision, and inspecting each plate before it left her domain. Her standards were exacting, but her kitchen moved with smooth efficiency, evidence of superior training and mutual respect. Did you know, Emma shared, reading from the tasting menu notes, that she started her food truck with money she saved working 3 jobs. She would prep all night, serve lunch crowds, then cater private events in the evening. The food truck became so popular that people would wait 2 hours in line. Judge Barrett nodded, remembering his dismissive comments about street food with growing discomfort. The artistry before him rivaled anything he'd eaten in Europe's finest restaurants. Each plate was a perfect balance of technique and heart, precision and passion. The dessert course proved especially illuminating. A golden peach soufflé arrived, rising majestically from a handcrafted ramekin. "This recipe honors her grandmother," the server explained softly. Chef Richardson spent every Sunday as a child learning family recipes in her grandmother's kitchen. When she won her first major cooking competition, she used the prize money to pay for her grandmother's medical bills. Through the window, they watched Maya personally finishing a row of soufflés, her movements precise and graceful. The judge recognized the same focus he saw in top attorneys presenting landmark cases, the absolute mastery of craft that comes only through years of dedication and sacrifice. She teaches advanced pastry techniques at Le Cordon Bleu now, Emma continued, savoring her dessert. And she started a program helping young people learn culinary arts. Several of her students have opened their own successful restaurants. As they finished their meal, Judge Barrett reflected on how this evening had transformed his understanding. Maya Richardson wasn't just a successful chef. She was a master of her craft, a teacher, a mentor, and a pillar of her community. The parking tickets that had seemed so significant in his courtroom now felt trivial compared to the legacy she was building. Looking through the kitchen window one last time, he saw Maya tasting a sauce with the same careful consideration he gave to legal precedents. In her domain, she was every bit the judge she was in his, weighing, measuring, and ensuring that everything met the highest standards of excellence. As the final plates were cleared, Judge Barrett watched Maya complete her nightly ritual through the kitchen window. She tasted each sauce one final time, reviewed tomorrow's menu with her sous chef, and spoke encouraging words to each member of her staff. Her James Beard medal caught the light as she moved, a constant reminder of her culinary excellence. Would Chef Richardson be available for a moment? He asked their server, his voice carrying a hint of nervousness unusual for a man who commanded attention in his courtroom daily. Emma squeezed his hand supportively, understanding the weight of the moment. Minutes later, Maya approached their table, her chef's whites crisp and pristine even after a full evening of service. The confidence in her stride matched the quiet authority she displayed in her kitchen all evening. A few nearby diners whispered in recognition. She'd recently been featured on the Food Network's top competitions. Judge Barrett, Maya greeted him with professional warmth, showing no sign of their previous courthouse encounter. I trust everything was to your satisfaction this evening. Her poise remained impeccable, the same dignity she'd shown in his courtroom now backed by the clear evidence of her mastery. The judge stood, a gesture of respect he reserved for few people. Ms. Richardson, Chef Richardson, he corrected himself, the meal was beyond exceptional. Each course told a story of dedication, creativity, and extraordinary skill. He paused, gathering his thoughts like he did before delivering important verdicts. But I owe you more than compliments on your cuisine, he continued, his voice softening. I owe you an apology. In my courtroom, I made assumptions that were not only incorrect but unfair. I failed to see the remarkable professional before me. Maya's expression remained composed, but her eyes softened slightly. Around them, the restaurant hummed with the gentle music of fine dining. Silver-touching china, quiet conversations, the distant rhythm of her kitchen continuing its dance under her trusted sous chef's watch. Your Honor, she began, but he raised his hand gently. Please, he said, tonight I'm simply a humble diner who has been privileged to experience your artistry. The way you run your kitchen, the precision of your work, the standards you maintain, they remind me of the highest principles of law, excellence, fairness, and the pursuit of perfection. Emma, watching the exchange, dabbed at her eyes with her napkin as Maya's professional facade melted into a genuine smile. Judge Barrett, in my kitchen, we have a saying, every dish is a fresh start. Perhaps we could view this evening the same way. The judge nodded gratefully. I would be honored. And if you're willing, I would very much like to learn more about your mentorship program. The courthouse has a youth outreach initiative that might benefit from collaboration with someone who understands the transformative power of finding one's calling. Maya's eyes lit up with the same passion they'd seen when she was creating her culinary masterpieces. Actually, I'm giving a presentation next week about career opportunities in culinary arts at the community center. We would welcome a legal perspective on business planning and regulations. As they discussed possibilities, other diners tried to hide their interest in the unusual scene, a renowned chef and a distinguished judge finding common ground in their shared commitment to excellence and community service. The evening's carefully crafted menu had done more than satisfy appetites. It had bridged two worlds through the universal language of respect for craft and dedication to purpose. 6 months after that transformative dinner at Sweet Magnolia, Judge Barrett stood before a different kind of audience. The cooking school attached to Maya's restaurant buzzed with excitement as 30 aspiring young chefs listened to his presentation on restaurant regulations and business law. His regular guest lectures had become a favorite part of Maya's culinary entrepreneurship program. Remember, he emphasized, pointing to a carefully prepared slide, success in the culinary world requires understanding both your craft and the legal framework that supports it. He smiled as he noticed Maya entering quietly through the back door, her chef's whites exchanged for a smart business suit. She was headed to a meeting about her third restaurant location after this session. The students' notebooks were open, pens moving quickly as he shared insights about food truck permits, health inspections, and business licenses. These were the same regulations he once wielded so sternly, now presented as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. His perspective had shifted from enforcing rules to empowering dreams. During the tea and a session, a young student raised her hand. Your Honor, how did you and Chef Richardson start working together? The room grew quiet, anticipating the story that had become something of a legend in Atlanta's culinary circle. Maya stepped forward, joining him at the podium. Judge Barrett and I, she began with a warm smile, learned that excellence can wear many different uniforms. The judge nodded, remembering his previous assumptions about her casual dress in his courtroom. Their collaboration had blossomed beyond these lectures. The courthouse cafeteria now featured a training program for culinary students, giving them real-world experience while improving the quality of judicial staff lunches. Several of Maya's graduates had opened successful food trucks, armed with both culinary skills and proper permits, a detail that always made the judge smile. After class, they met in Maya's test kitchen, where she was developing dishes for her upcoming cookbook. "Try this," she offered, sliding a plate towards him. It was her latest creation, a sophisticated take on Southern comfort food that would feature in the courthouse cafeteria's new menu. "Perfect balance," he commented, using the culinary vocabulary he'd learned over months of their friendship. Like a well-crafted legal argument. Maya laughed, the sound echoing through her kitchen, where photos of her students' success stories lined the walls alongside her numerous awards. Tomorrow, they would co-host a fundraiser for their joint initiative, a program providing culinary and business education to young people interested in food service careers. The event would be held in the courthouse's Grand Hall, bringing together judges, chefs, and community leaders to support the next generation of culinary entrepreneurs. "You know," Maya said, adjusting the seasoning in her sauce, "that day in court turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Sometimes the best recipes come from unexpected combinations." Judge Barrett watched her work, admiring the same precision he valued in his own profession. "Indeed. And speaking of unexpected combinations, Emma insists you join us for Sunday dinner. She's attempting your roast chicken recipe and demands professional supervision." Maya grinned, remembering how the judge's wife had become one of her most enthusiastic cooking students. "I'll bring dessert. Maybe that peach souffle you like so much." As they finalized plans for tomorrow's fundraiser, both reflected on how their worlds had merged. The judge had learned to see beyond the surface, while Maya had found an unexpected ally in navigating the business side of her culinary empire. Their story had become a testament to the power of second chances and the magic that happens when people take the time to look past first impressions. In the bustling kitchen around them, another class of students began their training, each dreaming of their own success story. And in both their hearts, they knew that sometimes the most magnificent feasts begin with a humble serving of humble pie.